The radio crackles with controlled panic. We are combat ineffective. 3 urgent surgical, 2 routine. Cannot move without taking casualties. Enemy has us zeroed in every position. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison presses himself flat behind a mud wall that's disintegrating under sustained PKM machine gun fire. His SEAL team has been pinned in this Afghan compound for 40 minutes, ammunition running critical, casualties mounting, and the enemy keeps pouring in more fighters like they have got an endless supply. The QRF can't reach them. Enemy positions control every approach. Air support is 20 minutes out. They don't have 20 minutes. The sniper overwatching from the ridge went silent 10 minutes ago. Status unknown, probably dead. They're out of options and out of time. That's when Morrison hears something that doesn't fit the chaos. A different weapon signature. Not the sharp crack of AK-47s or the hammering of machine guns. This is rhythmic, measured, deliberate. A semi-automatic precision rifle firing in controlled cadence from somewhere high and distant, and with each report, an enemy position falls silent. The SEAL next to Morrison, Petty Officer Chen, risks a glance over the crumbling wall. "Sir, the machine gun nest on the eastern ridge just went dark. So did the RPG team on the roof. And that sniper who's been hammering us from the tower, he just disappeared." Morrison doesn't understand what's happening, but he knows opportunity when he hears it. "All elements, prepare to move on my command. Someone just gave us a window." Before we reveal who's eliminating an entire enemy force with precision so perfect it seems impossible, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and hit subscribe. Because what happened next wasn't just marksmanship. It was a masterclass in how one shooter with the right weapon and absolute determination can change the outcome of a battle everyone thought was already lost. Staff Sergeant Monica Blake had been watching the SEAL team's situation deteriorate for 37 minutes from her position 800 meters away on the opposite ridgeline. She'd seen them get ambushed moving through the compound, watched them take casualties trying to establish defensive positions, counted the enemy fighters flowing into the area like water finding cracks. Her original mission was simple: provide overwatch for the SEAL element conducting a high-value target raid in the valley below. She was supposed to observe, report threats, maybe take a few precision shots if absolutely necessary. Standard supporting role for a sniper attached to a SEAL operation. But 30 minutes ago, her spotter, Corporal Davis, took a round through the shoulder from an enemy sniper who'd located their hide. Davis was stable but combat ineffective, bleeding controlled but unable to continue the mission. The team medic was with the SEALs getting shredded in the compound, and the enemy was systematically destroying Morrison's team. Monica had made a decision that would either save lives or get her court-martialed. She was going to take every shot she could make, regardless of doctrine, regardless of ammunition conservation, regardless of the fact that engaging this many targets would definitely compromise her position. Her weapon was a SR-25 semi-automatic sniper rifle chambered in 7.62 by 51 mm NATO. Not the bolt-action long-range precision rifle most snipers carried. The SR-25 traded some accuracy at extreme distance for the ability to fire rapidly, to engage multiple targets without working a bolt between shots, to maintain pressure on an enemy force. At 800 meters, it was well within the weapon's effective range, and Monica Blake was very, very good at putting rounds exactly where she wanted them. She'd already identified 32 enemy positions through her scope: machine gun nests, sniper hides, RPG teams, mortar crews, and fighting positions where enemy fighters were pouring fire into the trapped SEALs. 32 targets, 32 problems that needed solving immediately. Most snipers would pick the highest value targets, leaders, heavy weapons, direct threats, and engage methodically, conserving ammunition, maintaining concealment. Monica was about to do something different. She was going to work through every single target she could acquire as fast as she could shoot accurately, and she was going to keep shooting until either the enemy was destroyed or she ran out of ammunition. She checked her ammunition load: 8 20-round magazines, 160 rounds total. Against 30-plus enemy fighters, the math wasn't encouraging. But math had never been particularly good at accounting for skill, determination, and absolute refusal to watch good men die when she could do something about it. Monica settled behind her rifle, controlled her breathing, and began the work of systematic violence. The first target was a PKM machine gunner on the eastern ridge, 780 meters out. He was laying down sustained fire on the SEALs' position, keeping them pinned, preventing movement. Through her scope, Monica could see the brass casings ejecting in a steady stream as he poured rounds into the compound. She placed her crosshairs on his center mass, accounting for the slight breeze pushing right to left, calculated the holdover for distance, and pressed the trigger. The SR-25 barked once. Through the scope, she watched the machine gunner jerk backward, his weapon falling silent, the sustained fire that had been hammering Morrison's position suddenly gone. She didn't wait to confirm the kill. She was already transitioning to target 2, an RPG gunner on a rooftop 820 meters northeast, preparing to fire another rocket into the compound. Trigger press. The semi-automatic action cycled smoothly, the rifle settling back on target almost immediately. The RPG gunner dropped, his rocket launcher clattering unfired to the roof. Target 3, sniper in a window, 765 meters, partially concealed. She could only see his rifle barrel and part of his head. Difficult shot, but manageable. She fired. The enemy sniper disappeared from the window, his rifle falling into view, no longer aimed at the trapped SEALs. Morrison's voice crackled over the radio, confusion evident. "Unknown friendly element. If you're engaging enemy positions, please identify yourself." Monica didn't answer. She was too busy acquiring Target 4, a mortar crew setting up 850 meters away, positioning their tube to drop high-explosive rounds directly into the compound. She engaged the gunner first, then the assistant gunner who tried to take over. 2 shots, 2 seconds apart, and the mortar was no longer a threat. Now the enemy was starting to react. They'd figured out they were taking fire from somewhere, but hadn't pinpointed her location yet. Fighters were moving to cover, becoming harder targets, but also reducing their effectiveness against the SEALs. Monica exploited their confusion. While they searched for her, she systematically removed their heavy weapons positions. Another machine gun nest, 2 shooters, 3 rounds total, including 1 follow-up shot. An RPG team relocating to better firing position, caught in the open, 3 targets, 5 rounds to ensure all 3 were down. Her rifle was getting hot from the sustained rate of fire. The SR-25 was designed for this kind of work, but she was pushing it hard, firing faster than normal doctrine called for. But normal doctrine didn't account for watching an entire SEAL team about to get overrun. She'd fired 32 rounds in 4 minutes. 16 enemy fighters were no longer combat effective. The pressure on Morrison's team was decreasing with each shot, and she could see them starting to consolidate, to move wounded to better cover, to prepare for extraction. But the enemy wasn't done. A new element was moving into position, 8 fighters with what looked like better training, better weapons, better tactical movement. They were flanking toward the compound from the north, using covered routes, moving in coordinated bounds, and they'd figured out the general direction the precision fire was coming from. Several of them broke off, starting to climb toward Monica's ridgeline, assault rifles ready. She had a choice: focus on the immediate threat to the SEALs or deal with the fighters closing on her position. She chose the SEALs. They had wounded. They couldn't move. She was mobile and could relocate if necessary. Monica engaged the flanking element with rapid precision. The lead fighter dropped at 790 meters. His partner dove for cover, but she caught him mid-movement. The third fighter made it behind a rock, but when he exposed himself to return fire, she was waiting with her crosshairs already positioned. The SR-25 was performing flawlessly despite the heat and sustained firing. Brass casings piled up around her position, each one representing an enemy fighter who was no longer threatening the men trapped below. But ammunition was becoming critical. She'd burned through 5 magazines, 100 rounds, 3 magazines left, 60 rounds, and there were still at least 10 to 12 enemy fighters actively engaging the SEALs, plus the unknown number climbing toward her position. Monica made another tactical decision. She couldn't save every round. She had to keep shooting as long as there were targets threatening Morrison's team. She reloaded smoothly, muscle memory taking over, and resumed firing. A fighter trying to maneuver closer to the compound, down. Another machine gunner setting up in a new position, eliminated before he could fire a burst. An enemy officer trying to coordinate the assault from behind cover, found the cover inadequate when Monica's 7.62 millimeter round punched through the mud brick he was hiding behind. The enemy assault was collapsing. Not because they were cowards. These were experienced fighters who'd been winning the battle 5 minutes ago, but they couldn't fight what they couldn't see, couldn't suppress a threat they couldn't locate, couldn't advance when their leaders and heavy weapons kept disappearing under precision fire from 800 meters away. Morrison's team exploited the breathing room. The SEALs began returning organized fire, no longer just defending, but actively clearing threats. Their training and equipment were superior. They just needed the opportunity to use it. Monica was giving them that opportunity, one trigger press at a time. Then, the enemy fighters climbing toward her position opened fire. Rounds cracked over Monica's head, impacting the rocks around her position. They'd gotten close, maybe 300 meters below her ridge, and they were shooting with the desperation of fighters who knew they were losing and needed to kill the sniper who was destroying their ambush. She had to move. This position was compromised, but she also had clear shots on the fighters coming up the hill, and the SEALs still needed her covering fire. Monica made a decision that prioritized mission over personal safety. She would stay in this position and keep shooting until either the enemy was defeated or she was forced to displace by direct assault. She transitioned to the closer threats, the fighters climbing toward her. At 300 meters, the SR-25 was devastatingly accurate. She dropped 3 of them in rapid succession, her semi-automatic rate of fire overwhelming their ability to find cover fast enough. The remaining 5 scattered, trying to flank her position from multiple angles. Smart tactics, but they were operating in terrain she'd studied for hours while setting up her hide. She knew every rock, every fold in the ground, every approach route. She caught one trying to use a gully for concealment. He'd forgotten that 800 meters away she had elevated position and could see down into his covered route. Another tried to rush from rock to rock, but Monica's trigger timing caught him mid-bound. Her bolt locked back. Empty magazine. She dropped it, seated a fresh one, released the bolt, and was back in the fight in under 3 seconds. 2 magazines left. 40 rounds. The math was getting tighter. Below in the compound, Morrison's team was preparing to move. She could see them organizing casualty evacuation, establishing security, getting ready to break contact now that the enemy pressure had decreased. But there were still enemy fighters in position, still threats that could shred the SEALs during their withdrawal. Monica identified 5 positions that had clear fields of fire on the compound's only exit route. She engaged them systematically. The range was long for rapid shooting, between 800 and 900 meters. But she'd been making these shots for the past 20 minutes. Her holds were automatic now, her trigger control perfect, her breathing synchronized with the rifle's natural pause. 5 positions, 7 enemy fighters total. She took them all within 90 seconds, burning through precious ammunition, but clearing the path for Morrison's team to move. "Unknown friendly sniper," Morrison's voice came through her radio again. "We are moving to extraction point Alpha. Enemy resistance has collapsed. I don't know who you are, but you just saved our asses. Thank you." Monica allowed herself one deep breath, the first moment of reduced tension in 30 minutes. The SEALs were moving. They'd be clear in 5 minutes. The mission was succeeding despite the ambush. That's when she heard the distinctive sound of an RPG launch from somewhere behind her ridgeline. The enemy had gotten smart. While she'd been focused on the valley and the fighters climbing toward her position, another element had circled around, gotten above her, and now they had her dead to rights. The rocket-propelled grenade streaked toward her position. She had maybe 1 second to react. Monica threw herself sideways, abandoning her carefully constructed hide, scrambling behind a larger boulder as the RPG impacted exactly where she'd been lying 3 seconds earlier. The explosion showered her with rock fragments and concussive force that made her ears ring and her vision blur. She landed hard, rifle clutched to her chest, and immediately rolled to assess the threat. 3 fighters were moving down from the ridge above her. They'd flanked completely around, gotten the high ground, and now they had tactical advantage. But they'd made one mistake. They assumed the RPG had killed her. Monica came up behind the boulder with her SR-25 already shouldered. At 50 meters, the semi-automatic rifle was a devastating close-quarters weapon. She engaged all 3 fighters in under 4 seconds, close-range shooting where precision mattered less than speed and aggression. All 3 dropped. The closest one had been raising his AK-47 when Monica's round took him in the chest. His companions never got a shot off. Her magazine was empty again. Last mag, 20 rounds, and she could hear more voices. The enemy wasn't done. They were still hunting her, and her position was completely compromised. Monica made the hardest decision of the engagement. She had to displace immediately or risk being overrun. The SEALs were clear. They were moving to extraction. Her mission of protecting them was essentially complete. She could withdraw, evade the remaining enemy fighters, and survive. But as she started to move, her radio crackled again. Not Morrison this time. Different voice, younger, stressed. "Any station, this is Rescue 6-1. We are inbound to extract Morrison's team, but we are taking heavy fire from enemy positions on the ridge. Multiple RPGs, at least 2 machine guns. We cannot land under this fire. Morrison's team has critically wounded who won't survive delay. We need immediate fire support on those positions or we abort." Monica looked down at the valley. She could see the helicopter approaching from the south, could see the muzzle flashes from enemy positions she hadn't yet engaged, fighters who'd stayed out of the battle in the compound, but were now targeting the extraction bird. She could see Morrison's team in the open, wounded men being carried, completely exposed if the helicopter couldn't land. 20 rounds left. Unknown number of enemy fighters targeting the helicopter. Her position compromised and enemy closing on her location. The tactical decision was clear. Withdraw, save herself. Morrison's team would have to find another extraction method. Monica Blake had never been particularly good at following tactical decisions when they meant abandoning people who needed her. She found a new firing position with a clear view of the valley, seated her last magazine, and began engaging the anti-aircraft positions. The first target was an RPG team tracking the helicopter. Monica's round took the gunner as he was aiming, the rocket firing wild into empty sky as he dropped. Second target, PKM machine gun position pouring tracer fire toward the approaching bird. She put 3 rounds into the position, gunner, assistant gunner, and ammunition bearer who tried to take over the weapon. The helicopter pilot's voice. "Receiving effective fire support. Enemy position suppressing. We are going in." Monica kept shooting. Another RPG team. Eliminated. A group of fighters trying to maneuver for a better angle on the helicopter. She caught them in the open, dropping 2 and forcing the others to cover. Her rifle bolt locked back. Empty. 20 rounds fired in less than 60 seconds, 0 rounds remaining. She was out of ammunition, and enemy fighters were closing on her position from multiple directions. She could hear their voices, close enough that language didn't matter. The tone told her everything she needed to know. They were hunting her, and they were close. Monica abandoned her SR-25, too heavy to carry in an evasion scenario, and drew her sidearm. A Glock 19 with 3 magazines, 45 rounds total against unknown number of enemy fighters. Not great odds, but she'd worked with worse. She moved low and fast, using terrain and rocks for concealment, heading for an alternate extraction point she'd identified during her initial reconnaissance. The helicopter was landing in the valley. She could hear it over the gunfire, which meant Morrison's team was getting clear. Her job was done. Now she just had to survive. The first enemy fighter came around a rock outcropping 20 meters ahead. Monica's Glock barked twice, controlled pair, center mass, and he went down before he could bring his AK to bear. His partners heard the shots and started converging. Monica kept moving, shooting when she had to, evading when she could, using every bit of cover the terrain provided. She could hear the helicopter lifting off. Morrison's team was clear, relief mixed with the adrenaline dump of being hunted through hostile terrain. 2 more fighters appeared on the ridge above her. Monica engaged from behind cover, her pistol shots forcing them back, but not eliminating the threat. They knew where she was now, and they were coordinating. Her radio crackled, Morrison's voice. "Unknown sniper, if you're still alive, we have extracted successfully. All wounded accounted for. Where are you? We can get the bird back for you." Monica keyed the radio while moving. "Negative. LZ is too hot. I'm evading to alternate extraction point Bravo. I'll call when clear." "Roger. Standing by, and whoever you are, You just killed at least 20 enemy fighters and saved 8 SEALs. We owe you. 23, actually, Monica thought. She'd been counting. She reached a position where the ridge dropped sharply into a wadi, a dried riverbed that would give her concealed movement away from the enemy concentration. It was a calculated risk. Descending into the wadi meant limiting her visibility, but it also meant the enemy would have difficulty tracking her. She slid down the rocky slope, controlling her descent, rocks skittering under her boots. Behind her, she could hear the enemy fighters shouting, coordinating their search. At the bottom of the wadi, Monica moved fast, weapon up, scanning for threats. The dried riverbed wound through the terrain for nearly a kilometer before opening into an area where helicopter extraction was feasible. She'd covered maybe 300 meters when figures appeared ahead, 3 fighters who'd anticipated her route and set up an ambush. They opened fire simultaneously. Rounds cracked past Monica's head as she dove for cover behind a boulder, returning fire as she moved. Her first shot hit one fighter in the leg, spinning him. Her second and third shots caught another in the chest. The third fighter had good cover and was shooting with disciplined precision. Rounds impacted around Monica's position, chips of rock stinging her face, the heavy crack of AK fire echoing through the narrow wadi. She was pinned. Limited ammunition, enemy behind her closing in, enemy ahead with her trapped between them. Monica checked her pistol, 1 magazine in the weapon, 2 spares remaining, maybe 30 rounds total. Not enough for a sustained firefight against multiple opponents. She keyed her radio. Morrison, I am pinned in wadi 500 meters north of compound. Multiple hostiles, ammunition critical. I need fire support or extraction, preferably both. Morrison's response was immediate. Roger, we are turning the bird around. Apache gunship is 60 seconds out. Can you mark your position? Monica pulled an IR strobe from her vest, an infrared beacon invisible to the naked eye, but clear as day through night vision or aircraft sensors. She activated it and placed it on a rock behind her position. Strobe is active. Enemy is north of my position, approximately 50 meters. Apache has visual on your strobe. They are engaging. The AH-64 Apache attack helicopter came in low and fast, its 30mm chain gun already spinning up. The pilot had identified the enemy fighters through thermal imaging and weapon sensors, and he was bringing overwhelming firepower to solve Monica's problem. The chain gun erupted with a sound, like the world's angriest buzzsaw. High explosive rounds tore into the wadi ahead of Monica's position, shredding the rock where the enemy fighters had been positioned. The effect was immediate and devastating. The enemy fire stopped abruptly, replaced by the echo of the Apache's guns and the sound of debris raining down. Targets destroyed, the Apache pilot reported. You're clear to move north. Extraction bird is inbound 30 seconds. Monica didn't waste time. She sprinted through the wadi, weapon up, moving toward the sound of approaching rotors. Behind her, she could hear the Apache engaging remaining enemy fighters who'd been pursuing through the ridgeline, buying her precious seconds with each burst of its gun. The Black Hawk helicopter appeared over the ridge, already descending into the wadi despite the difficult terrain and limited clearance. The pilots were pushing the aircraft's capabilities to get to her. She reached the extraction point just as the wheels touched down. The crew chief was hanging out the door, weapon ready, providing security. Morrison himself was there, reaching down to pull her aboard even as the helicopter was lifting off. Go, go, go! The pilot shouted, pulling collective and increasing power. The Black Hawk clawed for altitude, rising out of the wadi while the Apache continued to suppress enemy positions. Monica collapsed onto the deck, breathing hard, adrenaline finally catching up with her. Morrison was staring at her with an expression somewhere between disbelief and profound respect. You're the sniper? You took out 20+ enemy fighters by yourself? Monica managed a tired smile. 23 confirmed. Maybe a few more I didn't verify. And I had help. She gestured toward Corporal Davis, who was lying on the opposite side of the helicopter with his shoulder bandaged, grinning despite the pain. She spotted me the first 10, Davis said, then took a round and I had to work alone. Morrison shook his head slowly. 23 targets at 800 meters, semi-auto rifle, under fire, while protecting my entire team. He extended his hand. I'm Jake Morrison, and I need to know who the hell you are. Staff Sergeant Monica Blake, 2nd Ranger Battalion, attached to SOCOM for sniper support operations. Blake. Morrison tested the name. Yeah, that name is going in my after-action report with a strong recommendation for whatever medal they give for saving 8 SEALs from getting overrun while simultaneously engaging 30 enemy fighters solo. One of the wounded SEALs, his leg wrapped in blood-soaked bandages, spoke up from where the medic was working on him. That's called a Medal of Honor, sir, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. Monica waved that off. Just doing my job. You were in trouble. I had the position and the weapon to help. Pretty simple math. Simple math. Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it, just exhausted respect. You engaged targets at ranges most snipers wouldn't attempt, at a rate of fire most snipers couldn't maintain, and you did it while your own position was under assault. That's not math. That's not even skill. That's something else entirely. The helicopter banked toward the forward operating base, the Apache escorting them. The crisis passed. Below, the battlefield was quiet. Enemy fighters scattered or dead, the compound abandoned, the ambush that should have destroyed a SEAL team, instead destroyed by one shooter with a semi-automatic rifle and absolute refusal to accept defeat. The after-action review happened 3 days later in a secure briefing room at Bagram Airfield. Monica sat at a conference table with Morrison, his team, several officers from JSOC, and a colonel from Army Special Operations Command she didn't recognize. The tactical map on the wall showed the engagement area with red dots marking each enemy position Monica had engaged. 23 confirmed kills. An additional 7 probable kills where enemy fighters had been hit, but bodies weren't recovered. 30 enemy combatants neutralized by one shooter in approximately 45 minutes of sustained combat. Morrison was presenting the chronology. At 13:47 hours, my team was ambushed during our exfil from the target compound. We immediately took casualties, 3 wounded in the first 60 seconds. Enemy fire was coming from prepared positions in 3 directions. We were pinned with no cover and diminishing ammunition. He clicked to the next slide showing the timeline. At 13:52, Staff Sergeant Blake began engaging enemy positions from her overwatch location 800 meters distant. Over the next 30 minutes, she systematically eliminated enemy machine gun positions, sniper hides, RPG teams, and mortar crews that were destroying my team. The colonel from SOCOM leaned forward. Staff Sergeant Blake, your official role was observation and limited precision fire support. What made you decide to engage at this scale? Monica met his gaze directly. Sir, I watched the SEAL team take casualties and get pinned in a position that was going to get them all killed. I had the weapon, the ammunition, and the position to change that tactical situation. Waiting for approval or sticking to my limited engagement parameters would have meant watching good men die while I had the capability to prevent it. So you made a command decision to exceed your authority and engage 30 enemy fighters with a weapon system not optimized for that range or rate of fire. Yes, sir. I assessed that the mission success and the lives of the SEAL team took priority over following doctrine that didn't account for the actual tactical situation. The colonel's expression was unreadable. And when your position was compromised and you were taking direct fire, why didn't you immediately withdraw? Because the extraction helicopter was taking fire from positions I hadn't yet engaged. Morrison's team had critically wounded who needed immediate evacuation. I had ammunition remaining and clear shots on the anti-aircraft positions. Withdrawing would have meant the helicopter couldn't land and the wounded would have died. So even when your own life was in immediate danger, you continued engaging enemy targets to protect the extraction. That's correct, sir, Morrison interjected. Sir, if I may, Blake's actions saved my entire team. She put herself at extreme risk to provide fire support that turned a catastrophic ambush into a successful mission. Every one of my men is alive because she refused to follow doctrine that would have left us to die. The colonel nodded slowly. I'm not criticizing, Commander. I'm trying to understand the decision-making process of someone who accomplishes what most people would consider impossible. He turned back to Monica. Staff Sergeant, your shooting performance was analyzed by our marksmanship specialists. 23 confirmed kills at 800 meters, average engagement time of 90 seconds per target using a semi-automatic platform. They tell me this represents skill that's in the top 1% of military snipers. I've had good training, sir. You've had more than good training. Your file shows you're a distinguished expert in rifle marksmanship. You've completed Army Sniper School, Advanced Urban Sniper Course, and 3 combat deployments. But what's not in your file is where you learned to shoot like this. Monica hesitated, then decided truth was the best option. My father was a competitive long-range shooter, sir. I grew up shooting 1,000-yard competitions. When I joined the Army, I already had fundamentals that most people take years to develop. Military training refined those skills and taught me to apply them in combat situations. And the decision-making? The ability to stay calm while engaging multiple targets under fire while your own position is being attacked? That's just training and experience, sir. You drill enough scenarios, practice enough stress shoots, deploy enough times. Eventually, you develop the ability to compartmentalize the fear and focus on the technical problem. Each target was just a problem that needed solving. I solved them in order of priority. The room was quiet for a moment. Then the colonel stood. Staff Sergeant Blake, I want to thank you for your service and your exceptional performance under circumstances that would have broken most soldiers. Your actions saved American lives and destroyed an enemy force that had been operating successfully in that area for months. He pulled a folder from his briefcase. I'm also here to offer you an opportunity. JSOC is developing a specialized unit that combines intelligence collection with direct action capabilities. We need personnel who can operate independently, make command decisions in fluid situations, and accomplish missions that conventional doctrine doesn't cover. Your performance in this engagement suggests you're exactly the kind of operator we're looking for. Monica glanced at Morrison, who was watching with interest. What kind of unit, sir? The kind that doesn't officially exist. The kind that works problems other people can't solve. The kind that needs people who think like you do. Mission first, doctrine second, results always. He slid the folder across the table. Read this when you have privacy. If you're interested, there's a phone number. The training is brutal, the missions are dangerous, and you'll never be able to talk about what you do. But you'll be working with the best, and you'll be making a difference in ways conventional forces can't. After the colonel left, Morrison approached Monica with a grin. So you're a secret badass who just happens to be assigned to boring observation missions? I'm a sniper who got attached to SEAL operations because someone thought I could contribute. Turns out they were right. Blake, you didn't just contribute. You saved my entire team while fighting off 30 enemy combatants by yourself. The guys are calling you the gunfighter now. They want to know when you're available for more operations. Monica smiled. Tell them I'm considering a career change, but I appreciate the respect. You've earned more than respect. You've earned a place in SEAL team history as the Army sniper who refuses to quit no matter how bad the odds. Morrison extended his hand. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. My team owes you our lives. That's a debt we don't forget. 6 months later, Monica Blake was running through an obstacle course designed to break candidates who didn't have the right combination of intelligence, physical capability, and psychological resilience. She was one of 2 women in a class of 30, and the only candidate who'd been recruited specifically because she'd accomplished something the selection cadre considered tactically impossible. The instructor, watching her complete a precision shooting evolution under stress, made a note in his evaluation book. Blake. Exceptional skills confirmed. Recommended for advanced placement. Candidate has already proven she can accomplish the impossible when it matters. Just needs to learn our specific methodologies. Years later, when instructors taught advanced precision marksmanship, they used the case study of Staff Sergeant Monica Blake, who engaged 23 enemy fighters at 800 meters in 45 minutes using a semi-automatic rifle while her own position was under assault. The lesson wasn't about the technical aspects of long-range shooting, though those were impressive. The lesson was about making the hard choice to act when conventional wisdom said to wait, about refusing to accept defeat when accepting would be easier, about understanding that sometimes one person with the right skills and absolute determination can change the outcome of a battle everyone else has already written off as lost. And most importantly, about the reality that the most dangerous operator in the fight might be the one everyone underestimated right up until she started dropping enemy targets at ranges they didn't think were possible while under fire from multiple directions. Because Staff Sergeant Monica Blake proved something that day on that Afghan ridgeline. When someone's life depends on you, impossible becomes irrelevant. You find the skill, you take the shot, and you keep shooting until either the threat is destroyed or you're out of ammunition. And sometimes, 20 rounds is exactly enough to change everything. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of brave women in uniform.